to be here and to show this little demo and tell you all what is it about. My name is Avishay. I'm a product manager at Cider Security. And let's start our journey and see how Cider Security helps us shine light and secure our path to production. Our journey begins with understanding how a typical path to production looks like and what are the challenges in securing it. So first, we have our organic asset from development to deployment. All of these are in a very high-level view right now, and later in the demo, we will zoom in and see how Cider analyzes the relationships in each step. Our second layer is the supply chain, all the third parties that are introduced along the way, from dependencies, apps and webhooks, plugins, and tools. The main challenges in securing all of this is that first, every step in the way may introduce vulnerability. And secondly, is that everything here is very dynamic and it changes. Our code is always changing, therefore our supply chain is always changing, and we're here at DevOps Days, and we all know that tomorrow our ecosystem can look like this, and it might even make sense. So this is a very simple pipeline, and in reality, even for a small startup, our ecosystem can look like we have much more objects that are interconnected, and trying to secure all of this can feel like we are getting lost in an engineering jungle. And if you haven't seen the movie, here The Rock is a DevSec engineer and is lost in an engineering jungle. I haven't seen the movie, by the way, as you see. So this is where Cider Security comes in. It's one AppSec OS to help us secure everything from code to deployment. We divide it to three main pillars. Securing our code, where we have a marketplace with over 30 scanners to prevent issues from going from code to production. Securing our CI/CD, where we continuously map and analyze our pipelines to identify risk and suggest remediation plans. And securing our supply chain, where we have full control of the third parties that are introduced. All of these are reliant on having full continuous observability, which is exactly what we are going to see in our demo. We are going to use Cider and see how can we use Cider to detect vulnerabilities that affect our most sensitive environments, production. So let's start with the demo. So welcome to the Cider app. On the left, we have the nav bar, and here we are in the integrations page. And our journey begins with Cider with integrating all of our systems. So as you can see, we have the SCM and CI already integrated. We have our artifact repository and AWS and Kubernetes integrated to Cider. Once Cider is connected to all of our systems, it starts to map and analyzing our entire engineering ecosystem and build a graph of relationships between them. Let's look how our path to production looks like in a repo perspective in the Insider page. So here we have the path to production. On the left, we have the repository name, and on the right, we have the Docker it produces from the pipeline. Just from a quick view, we can see we have private and public repository that we use different CI systems. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see that not every project triggers a pipeline. So our demo goal was to secure our production environment. And let's say that for this specific case, in our organization, Jenkins is used to deploy very sensitive production apps. So what we can do, as Cider is mapping from repo to pipeline and vice versa, we can take all the pipelines that use Jenkins and filter. And now we see all the relevant projects. Let's add a label on them, and we will call it production. Now we see that the label was added, and later we will use this label in the context of finding risks specifically on our environment. Breaking one row down here, we see the repo name, its contributors, the technology breakdown, the pipeline it runs, and the Docker it produces. So this is a great view of our organic assets, but as we say, it's not the full picture. We have to take a look on our supply chain to understand the third parties we have. And here Cider shows 4 different tabs. The first one is our dependencies, all the packages that are introduced, which Cider scans from both our code and our images. And actually, most security products stops here. But Cider continues to identify third parties through apps and webhooks, Jenkins plugins, and pipeline tools. let's take a quick view on pipeline tools that without knowing our engineering ecosystem, we can see all the tools that are used in our environments. And we can even search for a specific tool, say CodeCov, which you probably never heard of or heard too much about because there was a security incident there. And we can easily see that we use CodeCov, and if we click on it, we can find the commands that Cider used to identify it right here, and the pipeline where it shows. This is valuable information for security team that later can use this information to reroll credentials and mitigate risk. So we took a look on our organic asset and on our third parties through supply chain, but this is still not the full picture. To understand the full picture, Cider needs to map the relationship between all of these objects. A great place where we can do that is our graph view. Let's see how our entire path to production looks like in one graph. Definitely a great time to take pictures, especially for competitors. So on the left, we see the SCM user. It's a group of 11. And on the right, you probably can see it behind me. It's the container that finally the image is deployed there. Every edge here describes a relationship between the nodes that are connected. And let's do a quick overview from left to right. If we expand our user group here, we can see we have all the developers and the permissions they have on the repo. We can see that it's not just the repo. We have the workspace, the SCM apps that are installed, and even the deploy key that are configured in the repo. Continuing in our pipeline, we see the pipeline that the repository triggers, the image that it produces, and the container it is deployed on. So this graph is not just an extensive view of our path to production, it also allows us to ask query, custom query, or predefined ones. But we don't have to actively look for vulnerabilities when we use Cider. Cider is using this map of relationships and is looking for vulnerabilities for us. Now we will end the demo in the pipeline risk page, where we will see how we can optimize our CI/CD posture and finish our demo goal by finding vulnerabilities in our production environment. This is a great opportunity to say that the risks here are the result of a great work of our security research team, which are doing such a great work that just last month, their project was mentioned by OWASP as officially a CI/CD top 10 risks project. So on the left, we can see the risks that were identified. On the right, we can see the description and even where exactly the risk shows in the pipeline. So we wanted to find risks in our production environment, so we'll filter using the label we used, and say we are in a very busy day, we'll look only for high severity risks. We can see that we've filtered, but still there are various systems here, GitHub Actions, GitHub, and one risk that is cross-system. And this is a really interesting point because most security products identify risk in one environment, in one system, while Cider Security understands the relationships and can find risks in multiple systems, like this one, which is cross-system. And we can see that risk involves our source and our deploy. It's a little bit pixeled because of the screen, but here it looks much cleaner. And we can even use Cider kill chain graph to understand how Cider identified the risk. Let's take a quick look. So here we see that if compromised, all the developers on the left can reach the credentials on the right. Without understanding the relationships in each step, it would have been impossible to understand that. And here we will end our demo and summarize what we used. So we talked about how complicated our engineering ecosystem is, the challenges in securing it, and that it's always changing. Then we used Cider. We saw how it beautifully maps our path to production, the relationship between the nodes, and help us detect and secure our path to production. Thank you all. And also, soon we will have a talk in the main stage, and you are invited to our booth that is right behind me.